Bitcoin Live. Today with me in the show are the guys Phil and Cody of Obius. Welcome to Bitcoin Live.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So today we have a lot to cover. It's a very interesting project that you have developed. But before we sort of jump into the specifics, can you sort of introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, Phil,
sure. I will go ahead. I'm Phil, the CEO of OBS. And yeah, I'm in the crypto space since 2017, roundabout. I'm a learned software developer / ERP consultant. I consulted many companies, middle-class companies, basically around about 20 to 200 employees, mostly in the market niche of, basically food and pharma, but also merchandising at a large part. So this is my background also in like logistics and warehouse.
Okay. And you?
Yeah, sure. How's it going? My name is Cody Arthur Dyer. I'm the chairman of Polis DAO. We're one of the advisors on Obius. I've had the pleasure of working with Phil for almost a year, and really happy to be able to actually start talking about in a public setting what we've been incubating on, what we've been raising on, what we've been building with our group. So really happy to be here today. My background extends through crypto for almost a decade. I've had some really big boons on early with Chainlink. Seen first Bitcoins under a couple $100. So I've kind of seen a real evolution of this space, and now here we are today with seeing the revalidation of of man, seeing how banks can disappear overnight, and I think it's coming full circle with where we are from the COVID crash just 3 years ago, and really being able to see the economic shifts and the technology that's evolved from where we've been since then.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, and it seems like the sort of crisis is going off pause or off hold, and we're in the middle of it again, which is good for Bitcoin and probably also very good for you guys. So we're gonna dive into Obius because that's what the show is about. So can you give us like an overview of the product that you've built?
Sure. So in general, what we are building is a full ERP software. So basically an all-in-one software that keeps track of all the resources that a company has to manage. So when you think about on-chain transaction, you mostly think about like money that you can transfer, like different coins, and these coins have a value and you can transfer these coins. But at the same time, we want to extend this vision and also make like other resources being able to transferable basically on chain. So not only the money that a company has to offer, but also like human resourcing is another part, or like the articles that you sell and buy all the time. So there are many more resources that a company actually has that they have to keep track of. And yeah, we are building an all-in-one software that uses the DLT in order to validate these transactions. And yeah, being able to track all the different workflows in the company, basically decentralized. This is the overall vision. And we are building this, let's say, all-in-one software out in different modules that we are going to release and already did in like standalone modules, basically, that can basically speak for themselves and work alone. But of course, the best way is to link these modules into an all-in-one software to like manage all the different resources.
You have created sort of Lego blocks that people can sort of self-select and build to their own preferences or customize.
Yeah, so in general, a company has many resources, and they can later choose from a variety of different modules, of course. And yeah, basically they can use these modules that they need. For example, we are all here in the space of like Web3, and normally you would expect the most companies to not have a physical product, or at least to not really need a warehouse. But for example, we made a questionnaire with like over 25 startup companies, and over 50% like gave us the feedback that they actually also, beside their digital resources that they have, they also need a module in order to be able to track physical articles, basically. So they also have a physical warehouse where they want to store and sell things.
That makes perfect sense. And we're gonna sort of unpack all of that because that's a lot. Cody, do you have anything to add to that?
I think I covered it pretty well. I think there's just really being able to finely tune the on-ramps and the systems that prove that the provenance of on-chain tracking is better. What's, supply chains, money management, employee management, these types of resources. And I think that Phil and his background had developed a unique perspective and seen what an appetite of what the market's missing. And I think that the standalone modules incorporating to a bigger process are going to open up a large doorway for how these products are going to scale and integrate. And the products are multi-chain, parachain in nature. So the idea is, some of the faster, less incumbent chains, they really provide a real-time reconciliation for these products, and especially for money, which is kind of what the biggest factor for major insurance companies or bonds or these types of this nature of the market. It's really shifting towards that real-time reconciliation and tracking that provenance, while also offloading the local storage of actually housing all this information yourself. So I think that being able to realize the full capacity of these chains for your business is going to be a clear advantage for how we're shifting these products and offering standalone modules, but also the complete packages if you're so inclined.
Wow, that's a lot, and I think you're very sort of prescient, right, where things are heading, because Web3 is the future. So it makes perfect sense to also have like a building block or a toolkit sort of to approach it as Web3, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're also gonna give a slide demonstration later, but let's touch a little bit on the markets, because we're in the middle of sort of this gigantic bull run, or at least probably the start
At the
of the bull run.
bottom of a giant bull run.
So how will this sort of impact your business model going forward, do you think?
So in general, of course, we are here like in the bear market as well as in the bull market, and these resource transfers that happened they happen all the time. So regardless of if there is a bull market or a bear market, when a company sells something, they sell it like independently from the overall bear market situation, for example. So in this case, it's not that important for us. Of course, we want to like bring the ERP management to startup companies, and we always like and appreciate the time where the most startup companies actually form and like come to life. And when people build in the current bear market, I think they are a bit more serious, I would say, than the companies that are only there in the bull market. So when we are currently in talks with companies that are building out their modules, products, services, whatever, currently, then we can make sure that they are a bit more serious actually than people only there in the bull market. But yeah, regarding the let's say profitability, in general, we take a percentage currently with our newest module. We take a percentage of the volume that happens through the platform. So we want volume on the product, and this is not related to price itself.
That makes sense. And but do you also see like an increase in demand for the product?
Yeah. So for an increase in demand, I think this is like I already mentioned, when the most companies are like being created, and yeah, there are companies that are going to create themselves in the bull market and also in the bear market. Yeah, but I think when we are in the bull market, people like spend their money a bit more. They are not as secure with the money, I would say, and like they spend more than in the bear market, of course. So I see positive sides at both market cycles, and I think we are in the best position to like profit from both.
Yeah, I agree. So shall we do a little demonstration of the product? Because I think you guys have like a short demo ready.
Yeah, I'd be happy to give a firsthand give you a little demo on the product itself. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. You can see us there. Everybody wave at ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. There it is.
Switch over to the invoicing page. Okay, what we're looking at is the dashboard. Currently, right now, the invoicing DApp is available parachain in a parachain capacity. It functions on Ethereum, Phantom, Arbitrum, Avalanche, Optimism, and Polygon. So you're able to actually send these invoices between or across multiple different chains indirectly or directly with themselves. In the future, we're looking to facilitate the multi-capacity between having multiple different across chains, but right now it's just Arbitrum to Arbitrum, Avalanche to Avalanche type situation. This is the dashboard page. What you're looking at when you come over to the creating a new invoice page, you come to picking the wallet or the person you're going to be sending it to. I'm going to be sending it to the Polis address, so I'm going to go with the alias of the company of Polis, Polis DAO. Contact person is going to be myself, so I'm going to put in Cody. And my customer reference number is for internal purposes. So you're going to go ahead and put, I'm going to go ahead and put test 3. So I'm going to go over here to my article, which is going to be the article on what the item is or what the description. And let's just say it's test 1, item description, Bitcoin Live, quantity. I'm going to, one test, I'm going to go with the token amount of $1.50. And I'm going to give myself a 2% tax on that. If you're, let's say hypothetically, you did want to give yourself a 25% discount if you wanted to use this for billing between for promotional purposes, and you wanted to say, hey, I usually charge $1,000 for this. I'm going to give you guys 25% off for these types of things. You go confirm. It's going to calculate this automatically for you. It's going to come down here. I did pass this box, but this box it calculates itself. It's going to give you your document number on your storage for your account. So it would be this account's second document on Arbitrum. The status is open, and then it automatically gives you a 30-day window for the billing. Traditional billing functions in a 30, 60, 90-day functionality. So you can go ahead and set that due date for whatever you want, but it'll automatically count 30 days. The payment option, it will show the native token for that chain, and it'll give you a USDC and USDT option. Over time, we will be whitelisting numerous amounts of tokens, depending on how our integrations with other companies and things like that may go. So, but we're going to charge USDC for now. The owner is going to be myself, so I'm going to do C. Arthur remarks, test Bitcoin Live. Thanks for having us. Heart. I'm going to go ahead and create document. So now what's happening in this process, this creates an on-chain document and an NFT of this exact formatting. It's creating an API at the same time where it's getting processed through to, I'm getting a MetaMask delay here, but it's going to process through, MetaMask is trouble starting, so try restarting the extension. I'm just going to go ahead and reset my MetaMask.
Yep.
I did this before the show, and I know that it works fine, but we're just going to go ahead and reset it, fill this back out real quick for you.
But it's very comprehensive. It's really
very. And it automatically detects the chain you're on. You see I just connected back up. It knows I'm on Arbitrum. Just this is how easy it is to fill that out. We'll show you even fast in real time. Polis, contact, C. Arthur. Reference number, test 3. Document, again, automatically filled out with that date and title. Oh, my goodness. Let's open a new window. Test 3. Description, Bitcoin Live test. Quantity 1. We're just going to put in $2 with a 50% discount and put in a 2% tax. So the protocol bakes in a 1 or 2% tax depending on the token. So I suggest myself, when I'm giving it to my employees to bill me, I suggest the 2% tax. So that it is not taken out of their wages. The USDC, the owner is also C. Arthur. Remarks, Bitcoin Live test. Thanks for having us. I'm going to go ahead and create that.
Wow. This is really next level. I mean, it will automate like so many
See,
processes.
it pops up here. The 35-cent transaction fee they're going to estimate on Arbitrum. Go ahead and confirm on that. Wait for it to pop up. Hopefully that went through. MetaMask has been a little buggy for myself. Yeah. I've noticed across the space, other people have been having bugs. Transaction has been complete. So our API has notified you, even though the MetaMask is kind of lagging. So then when it pops up over here, this is the real beautiful part about this. So when you do create this document, you are creating a physical PDF that is downloadable. So the invoice, we're going to be even adding this. So in the future, it'll say Arbitrum invoice or whatever chain you're on, AVAX invoice, Polygon invoice. So it shows you too the alias, the service date, all this information that can be now downloaded and used in your personal files. We got the payment method on there with the cute little logo, the owner, this is all the information of what's attached to it. You know, you see my 50% discount, 2% tax, the dollar in there. That's now downloadable from my public records. And then I'm going to, I just wanted to actually go ahead and log into the other wallet and pay it so I can show from the other side. So I'm going to stop my screen share for a second.
Wow. Well,
if you have any thoughts and questions on that while I switch to the other account.
Well, I'm really impressed. I'm kind of speechless actually how sort of seamless and fluid it works, and also about sort of the amount of work it takes away, right? I mean, in a positive way, right? Because a lot of this stuff is really like tedious and
so what the space you're seeing right now, you're generally seeing people trying to get signatures on chain, and most competitors or potential collaborators are working with, for example, Polygon, and they're just trying to get signatures for whatever it may be, whether it's a loan or it's a token agreement. They're just trying to get the transactions on chain, and then they're like partnering with like DocuSign and with a trusted service provider, and that's a signature, and then they put that on chain. But that's a separate sequence than if you're actually able to attach the money to the transaction. So now when you see it, I'm going to go ahead and enter in my other wallet. I got a little off on a tangent there because I got excited. But
well, that's good, right? I mean, it's good that you're excited about your own product. I mean, I can totally understand and see the excitement. So
it's such a simple idea in theory, when you hear it, but I feel like it clicks a light bulb in your head for actually how these things can be processed. And what you're really seeing is an evolution of how contracts are being seen on chain. So what you're seeing from a legal, so in the early 2000s, we saw the Electronic User ID Act, or I forget the exact acronym, but it made it so that your online signatures through DocuSign, etc., could be applicable as a physical signature in a court of law. But what you saw in 2020, with the institution of the DAOs and the digital IDs, you now see that a signature on the blockchain is now a digital signature, which is now a physical signature. So this real evolution of how you're seeing what is actually a digital contract and being able to physically see this dual structure of an NFT and a PDF that creates one document is able to kind of connect those dots. I think will be able to connect the dots in the masses' heads on how these documents are actually being perceived.
Yeah. So it will streamline enormous amounts of work and processes.
We'll offload all the local storage from all the companies that are including this, that have all these incumbent financial structures for keeping track of their own records. Like I can just literally go look at the blockchain of my own records. So I think that's a really prominent evolution.
This is basically the most natural use of blockchain technology and Web3 applications as you can think of. Like it's kind of weird that nobody else sort of did this before, right? I mean, it's so once you do it, it's like so obvious.
It clicks in your head.
Yeah.
So wow. Go and get myself. I think I have a couple dollars in USDC. I'm going to open back my share.
Yep.
And I will go ahead and.
There we go.
Okay, we're back over here on the other side of the invoice. You can see my request for the payment, and it gives you the option to approve the currency. So I think I have. I'm pretty sure I have $1 over here. I might not, to be honest with you. I might have to go get it. Site suggested.
Nice. I also like the
Pops up
overview.
just like that. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I also like the sort of the presentation. It looks very clean and very intuitive, right? It's very easy to understand.
So it did. So I don't have $1. So it just gave me the error that I didn't have $1. Let me go get you $1 real quick. But it's simple as that. You know, it pops up on the screen, shows you.
Yeah, because you know, you often get. I mean, most of my friends are also into crypto and blockchain and Web3. But you often the sort of feedback that I get from some of them is, you know, it's very sort of clunky. It's difficult to use. You know, it's not very intuitive. But when I see your product, right, this is, you know, you cannot make it any easier than this, right?
You really can't. We've tried. We're trying to make it easier.
Well, I think it will be hard to do because it's really, yeah, it's sort of the full package that you've created. So people can, of course, follow you on Twitter. I'll show your Twitter handle here. It's also above. But they can also, I think, follow you on Discord and on Telegram, right?
So our Telegram's the biggest one. I think the Twitter, definitely follow the Twitter as we're starting to cultivate these communities. We are going to be offering an airdrop for people who utilize the platform. Sorry about that. So I did get my $1, but it's going to pop back up over here. I'm going to go click my little pay button, connect my wallet, apparently. Excuse me. I swear.
Yeah, and of course, right now with Ethereum, everybody is using it, the chain, of course, to load up on ETH. I imagine.
Okay, we're connected. Let me go back to my pay invoice. Found it here. I literally just ran one right before, so that's funny.
There we go.
So on the Arbitrum, it may give a Ethereum suggested gas price, but if you click the adjusted, see, all right, so that one literally just went through nice and smooth, just like that. Paid $3.18. Put that $1 through. Pops up with the invoice. This is the receipt side. So now this is for my records because I've paid it. You know, that's all locked in. And this is, I think, the real evolution of understanding the dual structured realities of the NFTs and the physical tangible asset of the invoice PDF. So you're able to see the merger of this on-chain product and how it's applies in the real world. We're currently in conversations about getting DocuSign or another trusted service provider involved so that you can, if you so require, to add another signature to this document. So now it can be then applicable in a court of law. And that, from my background and what my understanding in evolution through digital contracts and kind of getting into this space, is the real barrier that needs to be broken, from my understanding, for conceptualizing for normal people, or, you know, quote unquote normies, what it means to have digital contracts. Because when you hear the word digital contract, you're like, well, what does that even mean? But it is just a digital rendering of a physical contract. And if we can, this is very customizable. We're in, you know, conversations about adding this for grant programs so that you can have grant parameters, or this is not built yet, but we're hoping to build parameters for thresholds and criteria. So let's say you had a year-long grant program, and it's broken up over quarterly payments. Let's say it's $100,000 and you get $25,000 a month based on the criteria of your grant, but you need to meet, 1,000 users by Q2, and then, 5,000 by Q3. And there can be on-chain parameters that are being checked for the volume of usage of a protocol. Let's say, hypothetically, you wanted to do this for bank reserve rates. And you wanted to say, okay, we'll lend you out so much money, but you need to have at least 10% in your reserves. So you could query their reserves to see if you're actually going to give them those additional payments. So I think that this is a massive tool, and we're going to customize this to infinity, and we're going to apply this to, because what is something like a policy or an insurance policy, but a fancy invoice? What is it other than this with 100 pages and then your name on 12 of them, and then the parameters of your agreements on the clauses of what disqualify you? So if we're able to actually evolve this invoicing process into subscriptions and policies, because if you're looking at it linearly, a subscription base for a year is just the same payment. Or if you were to make this a smart contract, it'd be one smart contract for 12 months, and then a 13th to ask if you want to renew it. And it just bills you on that monthly basis. So these are the types of conversations and really what we're working towards with these products. And I think that this is currently the first standalone module, and it will totally ramp us up into the next products. And right now we're in the process of our raise. I know you're going to ask me, is there anything else you want to talk about? But we're in the process of our raise, and that you can check out through the Obius-ERP.io website and check on that, or talk to us, any of us personally. It's for non-US citizens right now for this current round. And then potentially in the future, we'll have more options for US availability. But I think that it's a really great project. It works. And we're doing a really small raise for our first round to go live, because we're just trying to, bootstrap liquidity, get us running for a year or two. And I think that, there's a lot to show for it.
Well, first of all, congratulations on building this. It must have been a tremendous amount of work. And, the idea, the concept is brilliant. So congratulations on that. And you already mentioned that you're very excited. I can see it also in how you talk. So what excites you personally the most about, the product that you've created?
Personally, what excites me the most about it is the tangible evolution of seeing a digital contract as a physical contract, and then actually being able to build on top of this product with other companies and other people, and being able to actually offer this as a step-up process in the ERP software. And we're hoping to add drip payment methods similar to Sablier Finance, and even being able to add invoicing on top of these drip payments similar to Sablier Finance. We're hoping to either integrate or build a similar version to Gnosis and treasury management, because for DAO to DAOs, that's going to be the next biggest thing, I think, is the DAO to DAO business interactions and how people are processing these. I feel like being able to sit at this pioneer position with Obius, and being able to work with them through Polis, and being able to offer these services as we interact with more companies is going to be paramount to our success. And I'm this is what makes me super excited about working with Phil and Obius. And I'm sure Phil might have a phrase on what he's most excited about with the process.
Sure. So in general, I'm pretty happy that we are able to launch the first product now in this market segment, of course, because first of all, this shows we are here all the time. We are here in the bull market. We're here in the bear market as well. And at the same time, I think especially only for INV, there are so many upgrades we can take, and so many also smaller things that we can improve, but also bigger things that we can add. I think maybe also be related to the digital contract itself, not only invoice, but expanding this, especially also in the insurance space. I think this would be pretty important. And there are so many edibles only for this product, and this is the first product of many. So there's so much great things to come that we can all combine then and make them even more powerful. So in general, like I said, I'm very happy that we are able to deploy our first product this quarter, and then there are many more products to come.
So there's more in the pipeline. That's good to hear.
There's absolutely more in the pipeline. I think one of the the exciting things about where we're at in this piece right now. So Phil's been in his incubation phase and trying to get the bootstrap for his business for probably a year, maybe a little over a year, and probably even further back than I've been involved with. But as this process, he's worked with in Constellation, their network, and was a part of an incubation program for the product, which I was also engaged in. And he had a proposal in a part of many companies. And he actually won the competition pitch for his pitch on Obius, and is selected as being a real front runner for his product. And that was even before we brought the digital invoice to public. So people weren't even aware of the full functionality of what we even had before taking the token to market. So there'll be instantaneous utility for the token. There'll be instantaneous pools, and we're setting up liquidity in these types of offerings and liquidity incentives. and a staking metric for reducing fees on the platform. So I think that that's going to be a real full circle advent. And then the fees from the protocol actually go back into the token. So, it's a full circular value and, rotating that liquidity, I think, through the products and through the community and through the people building with the protocols and people that are building with us. I think that adds a real major value prop.
Yeah, definitely. And also the thing that you mentioned earlier with the legal side, right? I mean, that's of course also extremely
100%.
important going forward, because the whole space is becoming more and more regulated.
The landscape in regard, the legal landscape is evolving drastically, and how we're seeing what people are even understanding and recognizing as the shifting scape and what's falling out from beneath their feet. And we're in this past year we've seen decades worth of financial events and meltdowns on unprecedented proportions. And you couldn't even imagine, if you were to tell me last month that multiple banks were going to collapse this week, I would have been like, no way. You know what I mean? Or even FTX, last summer, I would have said no way. People were the weeks before that. So it's like this whole landscape is shifting, and we've been seeing the debasement of a dollar for hundreds of years, right? Basically almost since its inception, held up for almost a century by Jackson, when he finally, the only president to ever pay back the debt. And now we're seeing a more of a debasement, and especially since COVID and all the printing trillions of dollars. And I was even bullish on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency before all that, but now the mainstream is waking up to what we've been skeptical about for banks for so long. You can only see even 3.5% inflation based on 20 years is almost 40%. You know what I mean? So it's like, so you only actually have 60% of that value. So, and now imagining that, something that's crazy to me, I know I don't want to get too well-winded into this conversation. I don't want to take you too much of your time, but when you're taking a bond to market, let's say you want to do a bond proposal for sewage in my city of Cranston. When you were to take that bond proposal to the market, you would have to bake in 3 years that it's going to take for this bond to maybe get made. So you have to bake in the percent of inflation and all the price of the cost of living and all these other commodities, what those raise over time. And if you were to take that 3% and just do it before COVID, it's basically you're taking about 10% that you had to add on to every bill proposal. That's coming out of the taxpayer's pocket. And now if you're looking at 7 or more percent, you're looking at 21% or more on every single bond proposal for every single piece of material that is needed for your road, just because it takes so long for the traditional system to move it through. Now, if we had the real-time reconciliation of bonds being created in real time, those being instantaneously accessed, you could get roadways and things like that done in months, not years. And you could have these funds being redistributed, and it wouldn't cost the taxpayers 20% plus on every single proposal. That's ludicrous. Never mind all the fractional banking and only needing 10%. What they're charging you for money is, outrageous. So I think I get real fired up about these things. And as you can see from what we're building with our software, we're almost building a new means of banking. It's not a new means of banking, excuse me. We're building a new means of interacting between self-sovereign entities acting as their own banks. And I think that's really what the power comes from Obius and the digital invoice.
Definitely. And what you sort of mentioning here is something that Michael Saylor often says in his interviews, and I fully 100% agree. And I can totally understand that how your product could bring those costs down tremendously and sort of speed up the whole process, right? Which is a good thing. But
if you think about this invoice in that template that I showed you, what we're working on is adding trusted service providers from our representation on our end. So let's say you were CZ Binance, right? And you didn't want, Cody, random Cody, never mind my DAO, just Cody billing you. We can whitelist the addresses that you actually accept bills from. So this could be for your in your own backings and records. Now, let's say you wanted to actually, and like I was mentioning before, let's say you wanted to set up a reserve rate on, let's say you were CZ Binance and you had to lend a loan to FTX, or, that's probably a bad example, but any other Hotbit or KuCoin, and you could say, okay, well, we're going to give you 100 million BSC, or excuse me, BNB over a year, but you need to at all times have 10 million in reserve. So it's that could be checked and queried using the contract itself to see if you're actually going to give them those other funds. And now imagine this invoicing template, what I just showed you. If you were a small country in Africa and you wanted to issue a bond, you could go and you could back that bond. And now we could go ahead and, with all the parameters, maybe a little more customization, obviously, to what you've seen for the invoice, but we can add more parameters like what you owe, what it's going to cost, what you have to pay back over time. So it's like you could almost add it on top of something like an Aave type system or a collateralized debt position system, and require those reserve rates being adjusted. Amazing. As the US banks are collapsing, over this past week, China announced yesterday that they're lowering their bank's reserve rate. So all this liquidity that's being lost in the US market is being bought up by foreign policy and foreign companies. So it's really interesting to kind of be at this tipping point in society. And I think that the dollar debasement will continue rapidly. I know I'm not the biggest Bitcoin bull in the world as some of the guys who are like, I just put all my net worth into Bitcoin because the Western financial system is going to collapse in the next 3 months. And I'm like, that's probably bad for us. So I'm not really going to, I don't want to, I don't have millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars to go and buy up the dip. I'm only sitting there with, tens of thousands sitting there.
Phil and me, we are situated in Europe, and I think we have an even worse situation over here. So some Bitcoin is probably a good idea.
Yeah, especially in Europe, the banks have a really strong grip on, and I know that this battle in the US right now is literally just people fighting for the power of printing money, so the money movers are...
So maybe sort of a final question, or you can also expand. I don't mind talking about these things, but do you think this sort of rescue package that they sort of launched and which is ballooned out of control, will it perhaps create inflation?
Oh no, we're seeing unprecedented amounts of inflation. They printed I thought it was some crazy percentage of the total GDP in COVID, and then they're like, oh yeah, it's only like 7% or something, when in reality it's probably more like 30 to 40%. But what's happening? Okay, so how they predict inflation? There's a basket of different pools and funds that they look at, and they're like, okay, cost of living on this, price of lumber on that, and this various oil, all these various baskets. But over the last 50 to 100 years, they've been rattling away the different elements of how they predict inflation to make a biased number for the representation. So they'll take out things like cost of education, or they'll manipulate the cost of education, and they'll take it so it skews the numbers so that the numbers can actually be shown less than what the actual real inflation numbers are. You can't go and print, crazy percents of the total GDP and not see crazy numbers of inflation. It just doesn't work like that. But we're right now in the US is the literal worst time in history to ever try and buy a house. First time houses are not going back to what they were expecting, trying to, it's there's a bar or an XY grid of points in history of the worst time to buy houses based upon rates and, interest. And it's some crazy, I'm inverse on my camera apparently, but it's some crazy ballpark of the way out to the far right top. And it's no point in history has ever been a worse period to try and buy a house. So it's kind of insane.
But because we already sort of touched upon it, on the one hand, this is the excellent time to build and to create these kind of products. But on the other hand, I mean, you guys are also just, people living in different places. It's also a very dangerous time, right, to sort of be an entrepreneur in these situations, because your capital can be wiped out in seconds.
Yeah, well, I've had my portfolio, hit 70 to 90% 3 times, through the COVID crash and other different black swan events. And I think the most important thing is I'm in it for the tech. I really am. Like, through one of my first developments in the space, working on with biometrics on the blockchain and with the proof of existence and helping incorporate biometric signatures into anonymous hashes that can be used to prove unique individuals on the blockchain, but use them anonymously. So totally, total Sybil resistance.
GDAO.
GDAO, yes, exactly. So that product was I was a founder on that, and that I realized that was a great representative of the dual structured data, where you have the tangible biometrics, and then you have the digital signature that are combined to make the one product, and that so even in the future we'll probably be incorporating biometric signatures and these types of processes for authorization of users. So let's say you were CZ, you wanted to whitelist a company, but you didn't know if the company was real. Now you could get a biometric scan on that person on the other side to prove that they're a unique individual, or those types of very easy developments. And
the key in these kind of things is, of course, that it's secure, open source, and decentralized, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Is like the nature of the beast is the provenance and the transparency. I think that especially into these what we're getting involved with supply chain, or potentially with real world assets, just hypothetically gold, diamonds, real art, these types of things, they all, especially with diamonds, provenance is the most important thing. With the situation around blood diamonds and what diamonds are looking like, and you can't be in the world of provenance without having some sort of trusted service provider, real recognition, having some sort of digital signature, and all of these things are going to bridge towards chain. Whether these users are looking to bulk their assets and kind of keep track of them in one place, or they're looking to provide liquidity or garner liquidity from banks, etc., for these assets. Because you could put a diamond in a vault and you could ask for liquidity from the bank for that. Or you could have a diamond portfolio on chain, stake that diamond portfolio on chain, because they're all non-blood diamonds have a serial number, a unique encoding. And then you can say, okay, I've got this diamond portfolio worth 100 million. Can I borrow 50 million on that? And those types of things, really these types of whole dual structured sovereign information is like, I think, what the masses need for onboarding adoption.
Yeah, we have to stimulate and then sort of make the facilities for sovereign individuals to, develop
and
themselves.
I think the sovereign individual is the most important part of this whole process. But as we are aware, the majority of wealth is held in the hands of the few. So if we're able to make these processes for onboarding their systematic wealth and make it so that they can understand it and just have it being palatable, secure, audited, and usable, because what Obius is creating is they're not trying to create a product so that they have to handhold you through the whole thing. They're not trying to help. They will help you maintain it and have support, but really they're trying to put tools in your hands. They're trying to put shovels in your hand during the gold rush. And that's type of like kind of our building methodology, methodology. There we go. Yeah. And also the mythology behind our lore.
It is also, people often joke about it, but there is a sort of also religious element around Bitcoin, right? The sort of the
I talk to one of my good friends in the business about this almost every day, about how Bitcoin and the technology is a religion. And I think that even actually in Klaus Schwab's book on the fourth industrial revolution in the digital economy, he talks about how technology is so ingrained within our society, and everything we do revolves around the tech that we're interacting with. It's almost as if our entire existence is made to perpetuate and excel the growth of this technology. We're so incumbent upon the technology of our time. We don't know we're almost inseparable from the tech. And if I've got a little bit of Buddhist study in me, and like imagining when you look at a dancer, it's hard to differentiate the dance from the dancer, or the art from the artist, because it's both one thing. And I think being able to kind of imagine that separation of, or really involving that separation of creating ourselves and being able to give that sovereignty to individuals and being able to add that, especially, from the one level of, Bitcoin, adding the banking aspects, Ethereum, being able to add the contractual agreements on chain, Chainlink, being able to arbitrate and imagine the other ends of the oracles of these events. Every extenuating layer 2, layer 1, and all these other projects just add more tools and build the composability of the Web3 world as a whole. And we're really trying to latch onto that and be able to work with other products and be able to build, especially contractors in this space. I myself, as a contractor in this space, it's been really hard to figure out billing and getting proper payment methods and these things like that. So if I just literally hit you with an invoice, all right, here you go check this out. We're working on putting notifications in so you can get emails and prompts and other, and I believe Phil mentioned, or he has mentioned, and probably might talk upon, we're trying to put a browser extension so that you can be notified. And I really I apologize, Phil, for taking so much up of the breathing room over here, but been really excited on these elements and, especially getting to present them. And we're gonna be able to use this for, future purposes. So I think it's really important that we expand upon it.
Yeah, we should empower the individual, and I think you guys are building tremendous stuff that helps do that, right? And hopefully we can sort of move towards a decentralized world where technology helps us.
And I think myself, because I've been in a few companies with, especially I've been able to in a few startups myself, and I've helped build teams of like that 5 to 6 or 5 to 10 range, and I think that. Where I've seen issues is scaling further than that. And I think that these types of on-chain ERP softwares and on-chain asset management will really help you display and be able to help you manage teams and help you take your small business to big business. I think that that's going to be a real advantage of these types of products.
And then maybe a final question is, which is not related to the product itself, but what should people do right now in this situation? I mean, this is not financial advice, but we live in very difficult times, and we're going through a very difficult period right now. What do you guys do to sort of survive this?
Minimize bills, network hard, build like you are Nikola Tesla, and have none of the resources. That's what I think in this space. I've seen it difficult to build an idea from nothing, but I've also built ideas from nothing. Like I've seen proof of existence sit on a forum for 6 months while nobody talked about it. And then 6 months later, the biometric company's now involved in those types of conversations. And I think, and especially, okay, what you do in this type of climate and what we're seeing right now for Bitcoin, Ethereum, one of my biggest mistakes is over trading and always trying to find the next big thing. And I think that I was very incumbent upon, I don't want to say, shit coins, but literally just in the Uniswamps, just anything that my friends were throwing money at. And I wish that I stuck it out with a couple small investments. Like I did really well on Chainlink, but I wish that I didn't ever try to outpace Chainlink or outpace Ethereum or outpace Bitcoin. Seeing Bitcoin from under a couple $100, and then seeing Ethereum, I was on exchanges and like sending my money off Coinbase. In 2016, I had an exchange disappear with all my money, just like some altcoin, and they like took all my money, which would have been, potentially hundreds of thousands or tens of millions in Dogecoin and all these other things. I had like 10 million Dogecoin or some stupid number, and they just disappeared with all my money. But I think that patience is what people need in this space, especially with this climate, what we're going to see over the next 3 to 5 years. If I were starting with very little money, or I was working, and I would invest in 2 to 3 things max and try to at least get to the $4,500 range in one thing. Because if you're going to see your money double, if you're going to see $1,000 double into $2,000, you made 100%, but it's really not much. I remember the first time I turned $1,000 into $2,000 on Chainlink, and I told my uncle, and I was like, I made 100%. He's like, how much you make? I was like, I made $1,000. He laughed at me, and because I didn't have $500,000 to invest, but 100% is 100%.
True.
So what I would do in this type of market climate is eliminate all the bills you possibly can. If you can, honestly, living with your mother is not a bad idea. I wish I was still living with my parents, offloading my as many bills as I can. And then, honestly, I myself personally, I'm almost 4 years sober. I don't drink. Don't expend on indulgences. Don't overexpend on indulgences. And the first thing for me actually to be able to make my personal wealth was in reinvesting all my bar tabs into Chainlink at the time. I was able to actually, put a couple $100 every couple of days into an account that actually, ended up being over $500,000 at one point in time. So being able to I think that compounding is a really important aspect for people who are getting new into the space, trying to find just a few really smart assets, and trying to stay away from more risky things like, random NFTs that are just brand new, and trying to get through these pump and dumps. The quickest way to zero sum your money is to try to find 100x. That money is going to
We've all been there. We've all been there.
100%. So lower your funds, lower your expenses, try to make as much money as you can, compound in only a few assets, like 2 to 3, 5 max. You don't want to diversify too much. You want to stay in, I think being too early in this space is one of people's biggest blunders. Like, how many people do you know that sold before Dogecoin went to almost $1, or sold before Bitcoin went over 10,000, or sold? How many people do you know that lost Bitcoin? You know what I mean?
Too many.
If I could tell you one sentence, or people of one sentence, is dare to do nothing. Yeah. Find your high conviction plays, find an Ethereum, find an Obius, and then put your money in there, and then just buy a little bit more every time you can, and then do nothing. I think that, especially for myself, this is I've seen a lot of NFTs growth. I've seen Pudgy Penguins pump from 0.005 to being 5 ETH, and I had like 30 of them, Pudgy Penguins or whatever. It's or even fading Bored Apes. That's silly. I think standing on these types of things and having conviction is one of the most important things you can do. And I apologize, that was like a 5-minute explanation, but I've learned from experience. I've paid my tuition. I've got I've got millions and millions of dollars in volume on my account. I've got hundreds of thousands of dollars in gas fees paid on Ethereum. But right now, I've overtraded my portfolio to hurting myself in the long run.
And we live and learn, right? I mean, it's also like a school of hard knock life, right? You learn the fastest by taking risks. I actually did a Telegram post today, and it's kind of ironic that the people who are actually taking the biggest risk right now are the people who are taking no risks, because they're putting everything in the system and hoping that it will save them somehow.
Well, because just imagining your dollar year to year, it becomes less. It becomes worth less in your pocket. So.
Yeah, it's sad but true. Phil, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. So in general, I think Cody covered the most. But yeah, also from my experience, I think that keeping the builds as small as possible is a pretty important point. And at least from my experience, or from my perspective, my full focus, of course, is always on Obius currently. And luckily, I learned how to do nothing and being just sitting there and watching the charts go up and down, and I'm fully focused on Obius, and I don't really think about the market often nowadays. But of course, people have to take responsibility about their finances, and especially what I experienced when I was younger is that too many people just don't care about their finances that much, and go out, party all the time, and buying whatever cars they don't really afford, or maybe watches or whatever. And this is the real game breaker there, because they have no money left basically. So always stick with the responsibility,
or take their money out of Bitcoin into fiat, at the most worst time possible.
You're selling your USDC when it's worth 90 cents.
Yeah. There's so many mistakes you can make these days. It's horrible. So I hope people have listened to these wise wise advices and to see your awesome product. And we'd love to have you back on in the future. If there's any other developments with Obius or any other projects that you guys are working on. I really enjoyed the show. Is there any final remarks before we end it?
I just want to say thank you so much for having us on, asking great questions, going through everything. It's been a great conversation. You know, you're piquing my mind to the exact right questions we need to talk about on a big picture. And I think your audience is getting a clear view of what they should be focusing on in the macroeconomic climates. And I really appreciate your time for having Phil and I on.
Well, it was my pleasure. And we'll put it out also on YouTube. It's on Twitch. It's on Facebook. Soon we'll add some other platforms to it too. And but we're biggest on Twitter. So it was a pleasure. And I wish you guys all the best. And I hope you have you back on soon again.
Thank you very much.
Take care, guys.
Thank you so much. I will definitely come back on.